Hi and welcome to The Light Leaders, a podcast for light workers who want more money, power and impact. I'm your host, Alex E. Lember. I believe that we are currently in the middle of a global awakening of humanity and that leveraging entrepreneurship is the fastest way to raise the consciousness of our planet. So in this podcast, I interview light workers and conscious entrepreneurs who follow their soul mission and have built a business around it. I call them light leaders, and this is the new paradigm. You will hear their stories and, more importantly, receive tools, tips, and strategies on how you can also impact more people and grow your business while following your soul mission. If you hear little nuggets you love and you'd like to share, screenshot this episode and share on your Instagram stories. Make sure to tag us at the Light Leaders Podcast and we will repost. Hi and welcome to the Light Leaders Podcast. Today I'm with Monty Hooke. His mission is to expand businesses that activate this movement of conscious leadership to move humanity forward into an emergent future of restoration. The restoration of nature, the restoration of ancient and timeless wisdom, and the restoration of an abundant and connected humanity. He creates this through helping CEOs to scale businesses that are aligned to the mission through his consulting and offshore staffing company, The Exponential, and business accelerator, Lighthouse. He is also an equity partner and sits on the board of several other companies in a mentoring advisory role. He is also a passionate speaker and host of his own successful podcast show called The Rabbit Hole. Monty, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother.
And so we're actually in your studio that I'm using here, so I'm happy to have you in this chair.
This is a shared studio. This is not just for me. That was always my hope. That was always my wish. And this is not the Monty show. This is all about me hopefully supporting people like yourself to get important messages out to the world. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's beautiful. As I was reading the introduction, I had goosebumps because that's exactly what I stand for too. And I'm excited about this interview because I feel, of course, it's for the listener. And we'll talk about how to grow your business. I'm at a place where I'm close to 6 figures and aiming at going 7 figures while keeping my freedom lifestyle. And I feel you've achieved that and we're on that same mission. So really excited to ask you questions directly. And through me, it's going to be for the listener too. Just before we get started, you look like a strong, healthy man. So I'm curious, what was your morning routine this morning?
Actually, well, I was just sharing before that I ended up in the doctor yesterday. I've been to the doctor 3 times now in 5 years. Twice because I had infections from surfing, and once because yesterday I had an allergic reaction to something. I don't go to the doctor for things that I don't need to. So that was very strange for me, but I was asleep by 7 p.m., so that was unusual for me. But this morning, woke up 5 a.m., my morning routine is normally I get up. The first thing I do is I have fresh lemon, some Himalayan salt and apple cider vinegar. Drink that down. I do some movement. So for about 15 minutes, I do some yoga, stretching, Pilates movements. Depending on how my body feels, I might do some resistance in there as well and some hanging. So movement to me is very important in the morning. And then I would usually do a short meditation, 20 minutes. And then it just depends what I got on for the day. I generally don't turn my phone on for a few hours. I'll take the dogs down to the beach for a walk. So the first few hours is really just setting up the day without any distractions. I'm not really getting into any work mode or anything yet.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's beautiful. And we'll see how we can combine that freedom and that mindful lifestyle with also getting stuff done.
Yeah.
To give a bit of context to the listener, I'd love you to expand. I mean, I told about it in the intro, but if you want to expand a little bit on your vision for the world and how what you do through your business is helping bringing that into manifestation.
Yeah, so what I'm really interested in personally is I'm really passionate about the idea that humanity has to connect back to nature. We have to connect. When I say nature, I don't just mean going for a walk in the forest. I mean, we have to connect back to the way that people used to live in terms of the way they used to eat food. And, humanity has destroyed so much of the planet. We've killed so much of the wildlife, and we eat really bad food, and we've destroyed soil, and we're anxious, and we've got depression, and there's all these things going on. And every single problem, as far as I'm concerned, can be solved by each one of us connecting back to nature, right? And living a more natural kind of life. But then the question begs, how do we do that in a way that is aligned with new technology and the way, innovation and humanity moving forward? And I do think those things can be bridged together. So that's what I'm really, I guess that's what I'm passionate about. That's what the underlying kind of thing is. But the way my vehicle, I guess, is business. I had my first business when I was 8 years old, and that's all I've ever known. The only job I've ever had was working in a bar, like back in the day. So everything I've ever done is entrepreneurial. And these days, my focus is more on helping other people. So yeah, I've got my business projects, and they're pretty well managed for the most part. I do have a business project here in Bali, but the idea behind that is really to support, other conscious leaders to get their message out to the world. And I'm on the board of, I think, 5 other companies. And in each one of those, they're in different industries. I don't really mind what it is. My thing is more, how can I help that organization and the CEO, the leaders of that business, to run their business in a way that is conscious and ethical and has this undertone of helping humanity. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. And how do you do it a little bit more precisely? Are you building a community? Are you doing it through one-on-one mentorship, a course?
Yeah. So look, my thing is, I'm a very good mentor. Like one-on-one, I'm very good. I'm very intuitive. If I sat down with you, I would know and spent quality time with you and understanding your business. I would be able to rip it apart, and I could very easily show you the exact steps, what you need to do to move forward. But to me, that's in a one-on-one capacity. I think that's because, this lifetime of wisdom that I guess, having businesses my whole life has allowed me to tune into understanding patterns. And, so when I sit with somebody one-on-one, I really get it. So group coaching has never been a thing for me. It's not my vehicle. So I'm more interested in working with a few businesses. So I do consulting, but I don't work with too many people at the one time. My goal is to have equity stake in about a dozen businesses, and then help those kind of expand and keep moving forward. And then, keep doing my other stuff. If, I'll probably start speaking again and doing stuff, from stage. And yeah.
And that one-on-one mentorship, can it be done in 30 minutes?
In 30 minutes? Not a chance. No. I mean, I could do a lot in 30 minutes, but I'm not interested. My thing is working with people long term. Yeah. That's my thing. If somebody's not willing to, I think I'm a very good business partner. Right? So if
the reason I'm asking is I think it would be interesting to dive into it maybe with me.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Cool.
Maybe not completely as a session, but maybe I'll have a few questions where you can make it a little bit more relevant, but I might have questions on that. But first, I'd love to know a little bit more about your hero's journey.
Okay.
Like what led you to having a more spiritual awakening, I guess, at some point, or being more devoted to that mission of connecting to nature? Because that's not something we're usually taught in Western societies.
Yeah, and it's probably, I think people are, I think I'm unassuming in the sense that people would look at me and go, oh, that doesn't look like a spiritual guy. But I'm completely cool with that because to me, if you're, anybody who needs to wear a badge or a personality to show that they're spiritual, by default means they're not being spiritual, right? So my journey is I had my first business when I was 8 years old. So I think it's just I've had so many life lessons and falling on my face and getting slapped around. I was very lucky that my grandparents they were spiritual, and I think they nurtured me in many ways. And they had something like my grandmother tells a story of how she's died 3 times, and so I really gravitated towards them. And there was these subtle lessons, but I had spiritual experiences when I was young. So I had out of body experience when I was 4 years old. I saw spirits when I was young.
Oh.
So I always I say that I'm blessed for those experiences because it gave me the understanding that there's more than this physical. There's something beyond. And it wasn't something that I was ever proactively pursuing. And for a very long time, it was something that was just kind of, just in the memory bank. I didn't do anything with it. But certainly through personal development in my 20s, reading a lot of books, business, I think as an entrepreneur, you naturally gravitate towards personal development. Entrepreneurship is the best personal development. And then that kind of opened up the gateways, I guess, to more spiritual practices. And in the last 10 years, I've, been on some journeys doing plant medicine in South America and different things. And I think that's all kind of led me to this place where I am here in Bali. And obviously, you and I and many people here are called to Bali for that life. So
it's interesting to see, because it's pretty rare in our Western society that it's been something that started even at a young age. I know for me, for example, it's been...
Yeah, I think you're right. It gets beaten out of people because society, society kind of has these unwritten rules of, get a good education, get a job, follow the process. And if you were to do that, then it's highly unlikely you're going to have any kind of spiritual experiences. But I'm just blessed that I was always a rebel. I was never going to be anything other than an entrepreneur. I was never going to conform. I was never will. So I guess I'm just blessed in that sense. I definitely think that entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship and spirituality. They can, they're a bridge to each other. I think.
Yes, it's interesting, those very incarnated things like business or relationships. Sometimes when you think you're spiritual and then you re-enter that world, you realize you're not that enlightened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and look, there's a lot of people going around saying, wearing the badge of how enlightened they are. And it's like, yes, you're not enlightened.
Yeah, it's a paradox in itself.
Yeah.
Talk about it that much. I'd love to talk about how, so you're a business person, you also love your lifestyle, you're a surfer, into personal development, and you told me about how people are making business decisions based on their lifestyle, and that's kind of a mistake. So what I understood. So how do you combine having a great lifestyle, having a great business life, but at the same time having a different mindset for the two?
Yeah. So look, one of the things that it's when you're first starting out in business, and this is if you were to follow a traditional business, you would kind of have to build a team, right? Like back in the day, you would have a bricks and mortar business, and the paradigm of building a business back then was you are getting into something where you're going to have to spend money, right, to keep growing, right? But now everything's online. People can very easily become a coach and an expert in something, and and they can make money. People can make money very, very easily online. And to me, is that a business? I don't really know. People like to call themselves an entrepreneur and whatnot. But the reason people are attracted to that, obviously, is freedom, right? But what that means is that as they start to, make money, let's say hypothetically, somebody's making $100,000 a year. Typically, people get very used to that $100,000 a year, right? So they have a lifestyle which matches their income. So when it comes to when it comes to building their business, if they had to hire somebody for $50,000 a year, Well, all of a sudden, that means their lifestyle is gone. So it's very rare that somebody would make that decision. So what that means is they're making decisions to try to fill gaps, right? So meaning, okay, I've got this small problem in the business. Okay, I've got to get some social media done, right? So I'm going to find the cheapest person possible because I don't want to affect my lifestyle, right? But is that the best decision for the business? Not likely. It's the best decision for them trying to save money so they can maintain their lifestyle. If they had purely the paradigm of, I'm going to grow a business, they would be okay with the idea, I'm not going to make any money for 5 years and I'm going to spend it all on growing a business, right? That's easy for me because I've been there and done it. So if I lost everything today, I'd be fine because I would know how to build it back. But I think that's when we're talking about, that's the mistake that people make. And that's where people need to make the decision of, are they actually wanting to grow a business or do they just want a lifestyle? There's nothing wrong with just wanting the lifestyle.
Okay.
But what they have to understand is, if you're going to if you're going to make money and then your priority is to maintain that money, well, then that's the opposite of growing a business, right? So you've got to make a decision. Do you want to grow the business? Which means you're going to have to make some sacrifices. Yeah. So that's what I mean,
That's such an interesting distinction. And we're going to talk about the one on growing your business. For example, for me at the moment, I'm at a stage where I'm very happy. I have a freedom lifestyle, making way enough money to live like a king in Bali. But I want more. I want to have more impact. I'm also on that same mission. So then I think I still have a bit that belief that growing a business might take away from my freedom. Do you feel that's the case to start with?
Okay, so I think again it's the same thing. People kind of look at me and go, all right, well, you've made it, right? You've made it. It's like, yeah, sure, I hustled hard, I did a lot of hard work, and to lead me to this point now where I have choices. I could still be hustling and growing probably much more. But I don't think that there's any shortcut. It's like you've got to make a choice. Do you want to grow something substantial? In which case, there are no shortcuts. You're going to have to do the work and you're going to have to sacrifice, right, for some period of time, right? So is it possible to, so your question is it possible to maintain, to keep growing while having some level of freedom? Well, to me, freedom is, first of all, is a state of mind, right? If what we're talking about in terms of freedom is I get to spend my days, doing what I want to do, and that's not working. Well, no, I don't think you can. I think if you want to build a business, right, to the point where you can remove yourself out of it, right? Well, that's a very different thing to finding that balance. Is it possible to have a lifestyle business? So let me get down to the details. You got a number of choices. One is you can do reasonably well on your own. Right? You could make $100,000 a year just on your own, and then from there you might have a lifestyle that you really like, right? But you don't have choices in that. Like, it's going to be difficult for you to then make more money without sacrificing your freedom. Okay. You can, as you start to build a team, you can get to a point which is probably around about 8 to 12 staff, right, where you can start to remove yourself out to the point where you have a lot more freedom, right? But you're gonna have to go through some pain points where you're gonna have to nurture some leaders. You're gonna have to build the systems, and that comes through sacrifice of hard work. So to go from the freedom lifestyle there to the freedom business, no, you can't jump from that to that. There is a space in between where you're going to have to hustle for years, and you have to be prepared to do that. Right? And then there's another tipping point where if you go beyond sort of that 12 staff, what happens there is you start duplicating roles. You start putting in new managers, and then the dynamics of the business change. Because what happens is you might have people that have been with you from the start, and then all of a sudden you need a chief operating officer, right? So you bring in a new person, but that new person, now all your old people are pissed off, right? Because you brought in a new person over and above them. So then you start getting all these different dynamics in the business. And what happens is the journey from 12 to 25 staff, you lose a lot of people. You're changing the dynamics of the business. But what happens is if you can push to like 25 people, you then have a high performance business where you can then just be kind of like a chairman, right? That's a high performance business. So you can have the high performance business at that level. You can have the lifestyle, performance business at around 8 to 12 staff, or you can just have the freedom lifestyle.
Okay. You say there's no shortcuts. If I hire you as a business mentor, isn't that a shortcut?
It is in a sense. It's a shortcut in the sense of getting lessons and wisdom which could ultimately fast track. Instead of spending 10 years hustling, you might be able to do it in 5.
Okay.
But my thing is, I wouldn't work with somebody who isn't prepared to do that work because I know that they wouldn't have the resilience and the grit to push through what I know is coming. Now, that's not right for everybody, and that's okay, right? It's not for everybody. And obviously there's varying factors, right? I mean, some people make really great money, like a couple $100,000 a year just on their own. So, you could kind of scale to that, but that's not scaling a business. That's scaling your expertise or whatever. But at a certain point, you're going to have to bite the bullet and start hiring people and, spending money on studios and doing this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. It's like if you want to do something more substantial, you're just going to have to spend money.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see. I'd love to prove you wrong on that, but of course I don't have your expertise. And I know some people who I feel have built 7-figure businesses while keeping a lot of their freedom and not resonate with the word hustling.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you were to really break down what they did in the last however many years, did they not spend a period of time like really hustling?
I think it depends also. They would be very consistent and dedicated, but sometimes the dedication might be to certain personal growth practices. Yeah. For example, like they'd be very dedicated on point, but not that much working in the traditional sense.
And also there's varying factors, like business partners and things like that. There's all sorts of things to come into play. But as it's just the numbers, right? I mean, if you're going to lay down on the table 100 successful people, right? 99 of them have had some period of time where they had to grind for something.
Yeah. So it'd be to the listener, kind of choose what you want.
But exactly. But I also think that like if you build something substantial, well, then your next problem is how do I keep that, right? Then the lessons and the character that you develop from that grind is the thing that will help you keep that and go beyond that, right? So I think there's more to, more to that hustle that we're talking about. And look, I'm the opposite of hustle now, right? My thing now is I have people around me doing everything, and I have the ability to make things move around me. Can you tap into certain ways of being that help you, to be that way and get real leverage? And 100% for sure. But I just happen to think that having the willingness to do the work is the factor. If you're not willing to do that, well, then you're looking for the shortcut. You're looking for the lazy way out, right? That to me is like questionable.
Okay.
But that being said, I don't have all the answers. I'm sure there's people who've done it. I just know out of 100 people I know, 99 have done what I've done.
Yeah, and it might be different also with the internet and in some new paradigm ways, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting. So, how many people do you have in your team now? Outsourcing?
So we've got about 200 staff, which is they're the product working for businesses, and then my internal team's about 20 or so.
Okay.
And then I've got partners and people in Australia and people here in Bali. Yeah.
And do you feel like, so I've started working with an assistant in the Philippines.
Yep.
And I feel like it forces me to be really structured. So I remember you told me hire someone is a good thing to do. Why?
For a number of reasons. One is...
Because just to finish on that, a lot of the listeners might be solopreneurs, coaches, and tend to do, and I was in that too, and I still probably am doing everything myself.
Yeah, so look, let me approach it this way. The reasons why people don't build a team. One is it's the expense out of the pocket. Second reason is control. They don't like giving up control. It's like what people look at is, okay, I can do something and this task takes me 2 hours. I'm going to give it to somebody else and it takes them 4 hours, right? So they get pissed off about that. Well, I can do it in 2. Why can't you do it in 2, right? So they're making their judgment on that. But what I say is this. If you could pay somebody for 4 hours and that person costs you $10 an hour, well, it costs you $40. If you can do it in 2 and you're choosing not to pay the $40, you're valuing yourself at $20 per hour. You are telling yourself, I am worth $20 an hour. If you were to put a dollar rate on how much you are worth, what would you say? Like everyone's going to say, I'm worth 100, 250. They're going to come up with some kind of number. So make business decisions based on that, right? So you will never ever get somebody who's going to do something as well as you, right? But what I found over the years, if you give people the space and the opportunity, like I've got guys that have been with me for 6 years and they're not doing the same job that I gave them in the start. I've nurtured what their abilities are into what's right for them. And they're now a critical part of my business, right? So generally what happens is when you're starting out, you're looking to fill gaps. It's like you've got a gap in the business and it's like, I've got to get this task done, right? Now, that's all well and good, but what people should be doing if they want to build a team is start to look at, all right, well, yes, there's these tasks I've got to get done, but think more about how can I build a team? Think of it like who are the people rather than putting a person in place to fill the tasks. Like find quality, talented people that you can mold and work with. All right, so I don't know if this answers your question in any way, shape or form, but
yeah. And I feel gets you used also to like, I feel it's kind of a block at the beginning, but once you do it, you get used to it, and then you can hire more.
So look, and the reason why it's good, like you point out, is you have to, where a lot of people get stuck in hiring, is they don't know what they're doing. Like it gets to a certain point where you're just doing everything unconsciously, and it's your unconscious competence, and you don't even know what you do. Yeah. So this is the process which I talk about, and that's unpacking, right? And that is deconstructing everything that you do. And I've got an exercise for this. It's a very useful process to go through. If you were to deconstruct everything that you did in a day, you'd be very surprised. What is menial? What is shit? What is useful? Right. So if you were to deconstruct everything you did in a day, right, there's going to be 3 categories. One is high value, which only you can do. If you're a coach, delivering the coaching is high value. You can't plug in a virtual assistant to do that, right? The third category is the low value, which is really easy to give away, right? Now, people spend 2 hours a day on their emails. That's ridiculous. You should be checking your emails once a day and giving it to somebody else, right? That's low value that you can very easily give away. Social media, there's a whole bunch of things.
I mean, this podcast is a good example. So, for example, here, I'll take that time to do the interview because that's going to be hard to replace if I want to be the face of the brand. Exactly. But then it's going to go to my assistant in the Philippines, and he's going to do the short videos and the subtitles.
Exactly. So some people might be really great at video editing, but here's the question. Is that the best use of your time? Is that the highest value to the business? Probably not. So the first category is the high value. Third category is the low value. Then there's a category in the middle, which could be somewhere in between, right? So what I say is do the unpacking, give away the low value, and keep everything else. Then just keep going through this process. If you unpack every 3 months and you just give away your lowest value activities, you are constantly going through this process of clearing your plate, right? So imagine this. Imagine you've got a business and all the tasks are on a plate, right? And you figure everything out and you clear 20% off the plate. You give away 20% and you keep 80%, right? You do that 4 times in a year, you've given away 80%, right? And you're left with the 20% high value. So what that means is you as the entrepreneur, you're working on what is your highest and best use, and then you're giving everything away. And if you think of anybody who's ever built a business substantially, if you really want to break it down, that's all they've ever done. But that works at the smaller scale as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But that process of unpacking, deconstructing is very useful because it gives you insight to also where you're being productive, not being productive, finding things that you shouldn't be doing, that's for sure. Yeah.
Kind of mirrors. I guess it can be confronting sometimes.
Exactly, but that's why people should do it.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
I actually plan to use that unpacking to build my business without hustling too much.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. No, I'm all for it. Yeah, yeah. No, look, I do think there is a way to have a balance, but it's just you're going to get faster results with the hustling, and it does depend what you're trying to build. Simple as that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to the listener, let's imagine a coach that's making close to 6-figure or like a good revenue on their own, and they have their lifestyle. And they're like, okay, I want to go to the next level.
Yep.
First thing, hire someone for some of those tasks. I mean, like unpack, hire someone for some of the tasks, maybe get used to it then and then grow this way.
And look, the other reason why it's good in hiring people is because it's has you start to think bigger. It's has you start to think beyond yourself, right? There's different mindset and different paradigm that you need at every stage of the business journey. And the more that you can put yourself in situations where you're changing the dynamic of the business and you're forcing something new upon yourself where you're expanding, right? Well, that's only going to be good for you and it's only going to be good for the business.
You're changing your identity almost.
100%.
Now I'm a business owner with someone I hire.
100%. Yes. And you've got to step into a bigger version of yourself because all of a sudden you've got leadership and you've got communication and you've got these different things. Like even hiring somebody in the Philippines, there's a lot of challenges, right? So one of my greatest lessons, and this is probably useful for people because hiring people in the Philippines is a good first step, right? One of my greatest lessons, and the reason I started an outsourcing business was back in 2010 was I was starting to do a lot of outsourcing and shit kept falling apart. And it took me about a year to figure out the common denominator was me, right? It was my communication. So what tends to happen is when something breaks down, we look at them and we go, you're shit, you made this mistake, you did this. But we don't look at our own communication. So that made me really become accountable for how am I communicating? Like maybe I can be more patient, maybe I can slow down. And that's where this whole idea of really nurturing people and trying to understand where they're at rather than, hey, here's a bunch of tasks, do it or don't do it, and having that transactional kind of mindset. That's the difference between just trying to get shit done and trying to build a team.
And so to grow while keeping a freedom lifestyle, definitely outsourcing so you can have a team of people and do the task, but also leverage their own personality and skills and let's say proactivity. Yeah. Also, I guess you work a lot with automations, trying to automate systems.
Yes. So, but what I think is this: I think people look too much for automation and gadgets, and it's like people are trying to think, okay, well, how can I get more of my time back? Right? It's like, okay, well, we need to automate this, but I think people overthink that part of it. 100%, yes, there's systems you can put in place, but I think if you're at the stage where, all right, I'm at a crossroads where, okay, I'm making money and I want to get some more time back, then yeah, sure, there's some small systems you can put in place, but I think you need to have, if you want to take that leap to the next level, you got to be thinking about people, right? And then it's using those, you build systems around the people, right? Rather than putting people around the systems.
Okay.
That's the way that I think about it, because like I said, I've got people that have been with me for 6 years, and had I just built a system and said, hey, you've got to fit into this, well, then it's all about me. It's not about the team. That's all about me.
So automation after the people. Think about the people first, and then maybe let them
or with them
create.
Yeah, or with them. Yes, 100%. And look, I think when you're first starting out, you can try to fill gaps with getting tasks done, right? But the sooner you can bring somebody in as a wingman or a wing woman, like somebody who can really support you, that's really powerful. That's really beneficial, because then that is the thing that is going to probably free you more than anything, is having a wing person, right? And sometimes you've got to pay good money for a wing person. Yeah.
Interesting. And you told me about clarity is overrated. What do you mean by that?
Clarity is overrated. Here's what I think. I think people seek clarity so that they have the confidence to make a decision, right? What I think is a better approach is having confidence, right, to make the decision, just make the fucking decision, regardless of what's going to happen, right? The reason I think it's important is because people use clarity as an excuse, right? It's a barrier, it gets in the way. They're constantly looking for clarity. I don't have 100% clarity, which
perfectionism,
which means I don't have certainty, which means I don't have the confidence to take the action, right? Whereas clarity comes from having the confidence to take the action in the first place, right? And then it's through that you gain your own certainty, because, oh, look what I did. I stepped into something, right? And then the clarity comes through the action, right? It's not the other way around. So this is where I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs in the early stage, get caught up. I think you're better off just doing things trial and error, like just try something, fall on your face. It's like, how can you know what your favorite thing on the menu is if you don't try everything? You're not going to get everything right. If you're trying to get clarity on what is your thing, you could be like sitting there forever trying to figure it out. I think clarity comes from action.
Okay.
So you're better off just taking action, regardless of what's going to unfold, and figure it out that way.
Yeah, I can resonate with that.
I think probably everybody can, because we use it as an elegant, unconscious excuse to not take action. Yeah.
And what I feel from going from your, let's say, solopreneur practice to building more business is starting hiring. There's something also around having the structures around your business, maybe legally setting up a structure, financial systems around it. So when do you feel the solopreneur should take care of it in the process? Is it like really more at the beginning, so you put your mindset to I'm a big company, or do you feel it's something you want to kind of take care of as you really start building your revenue?
So you just reminded me of something which may be useful, and that is I think people should play the game for where they are at, right? So what I mean by that is a lot of entrepreneurs play a game which is what they're doing is not relevant to where they are at in the business. So I think, and this is where this idea of automation comes in, it's like people are in the early stages and they're trying to automate, but it's like you would automate if you had a lot of complexity. Wait till you get the complexity. When it comes to the financial side of things, I think there is value in the idea of being organized, right? So do you need complex systems? No. but a lot of people end up with businesses that are very unorganized and they don't have their accounts and they're paying, they're missing payments and doing that. I think that's not a reflection of their business. That's just them being messy in life. So even if you were just a solopreneur, how solid are you on paying your bills on time and calling other people and paying their invoices on time? I think that should be from day one, right? Just don't be in business if you're going to be loose with those things. I think, with accounting software and stuff like that, it's just better to be super organized, be on top of things. Don't try to cheat tax. Sure, there's, people try to think about, I'm going to set up tax-free and, in the Bahamas and all this kind of stuff before they're even making, decent money. It's like, don't bother with that. Get to that when it's relevant.
Yeah. Definitely. And at the same time, I know for me, setting up a structure, for example, put me in that mindset of with hiring someone. Oh, now I'm a business owner and I'm open to receiving more.
Okay. So it does depend on the situation. Does depend on the where you're receiving the money, what country you're in. But look, I'll use Australia as an example. If you're making less than $75,000 a year in Australia, there's no point setting up a company. There's no financial benefit or gain to setting up. So if you were to set up a company for the very sake of that's going to put me in a different mindset, I think your problem is your mindset, right? It's not your structure, right? So I think, like I said, I think it shouldn't matter. You should have the structures which is according to where you're at. And if you need to booby trap your mind to force yourself to take different actions so that you feel like you're bigger, well, I don't know if you got your head in the game.
Yeah. No, I'd say probably not this way, but not the other round either. Having, as you said, the structure that follow where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand the, the fake it till you make it kind of thing. It's like, I get it, but to me, that's more a reflection of something that is missing from your mindset. To me, it's better to create the problem, then find a solution, rather than find a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah, true.
Because you're creating more complexities for yourself.
It might depend also on industry, because there are some industry here have a lot of coaches, for example, network marketing, where there's a lot of law of attraction-ish part where people who actually believe in themselves end up that fake it till you make it has a limit, but sometimes actually manifests.
Okay. So, I mean, yes, but would it really matter? If they had the structures? I mean, is it setting a structure, which was the thing that made them move?
I think you're right. If you have the mindset, you don't need that to give yourself permission.
Exactly.
To do it without,
Exactly. Yeah. You don't need things outside of you, external, to give you permission to take actions.
Yeah. So
that's my take on it.
Update it so it's not blocking you, but using it as a strategy is probably not the best idea, because you could do it internally.
That's what I think. Yeah.
We're going to arrive at the end of the interview, but I'd love to ask you something you could tell the listener who wants to go from that self-sustained freedom lifestyle solopreneur to, okay, I want to build a bigger business with a lot of impact, hiring people. So you talked about hire someone immediately.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe a couple of other actions they could take right now?
Yeah. So I think maybe what is maybe underrated or undervalued is, or is sometimes difficult for people is partnerships. I think there's just, so much value in partnering with people. The saying that I have is this: 1 + 1 = 11. The right two people combining together can make something explode that you couldn't do on your own, or that person couldn't do on their own. So I think people should really have their eyes, their minds, and their hearts open to that. So don't go bringing anybody in as a partner just for the sake of it, because Monty said partners are cool. It really does need to be aligned. But I think I've seen a lot of, and my personal experience has been, I've probably pushed away some partnerships before with the idea of I need to control everything, right? So, and that's often difficult when you've got a small pie and then you think, I've got to give away half my pie. Well, now my share of the pie is really, really small. But what could you create? How big could that pie get working with somebody? So that's definitely one thing I think people, definitely should be doing.
And then you have levels of partnership that might be less binding. So you have the business partnership that you often compare with a marriage, right? But for example, for me with network marketing, I have business partners where it's like we have the freedom.
Yeah.
Or even doing this podcast with you, it's some kind of like partnership that's less binding.
It's like a strategic alliance. Yeah, for sure, 100%. People should be doing that one regardless. I mean, that's just a business
but on top of it, having a business partnership.
Yeah, so I guess where I'm the context I'm bringing that into is if people are looking to build something substantial, then don't be afraid of giving away half the pie to create a bigger pie, is what I'm saying. Because that in itself, if you want to talk about the law of attraction, is you surrendering to something bigger and giving up control of, I surrendered to what is here, right, to something that potentially could be bigger.
Interesting that. It's a bit similar to hiring someone, that letting go of control and trusting that creates that scaling.
100%. 100%. You want something else?
Yes.
Okay.
One more. We had Unpack Your Business, which is I think an action people could do, like unpacking now your tasks.
Yeah, the unpacking is powerful for anybody at every stage of the journey. If you think of let me go back to the idea of that clearing your plate of 80%. Everybody understands the 80-20 principle. If I said to you today, give away 80% of everything that you do, you'd be like, no, that's not possible, right? Because your mind can't comprehend it. If I say give away 20%, it's like, oh, that's reasonable. Do that 4 times in a year, well, that's 80%, right? So you do that the second year, well, you're left with 4%. The next year, you're left with 0.8%, right? So that should always, if you want to grow something, that has to be the mindset, right?
I love it. And that's something easy to integrate every 3 months, unpack, give 20%.
Exactly. And then the thing then eventually you end up at a point where, I say, if I wanted to start a business, I could come up with an idea, I could put the people in place, I could invest the money, and I might have something up and running in 6 weeks, right? Richard Branson, he probably gets the idea, picks up the phone, has a 2-minute conversation with somebody, and then he's building something in 6 weeks, which is 100 times bigger than what I can comprehend, right? So there's always levels to get to. And if you look at somebody like Richard Branson, it's like people want to go from where they are at to Richard Branson level. Well, I don't know that that's possible, right? If somebody wants to prove me wrong, then great. But that's the same idea. It's just at a different scale, it's at a different level. Yeah.
Thank you, Monty. To finish this interview, I'd like to speak a little bit about your podcast, The Rabbit Hole.
Yeah.
Why do you do it?
So I think I'm a pretty philosophical kind of person, and I like digging beneath the surface on people. What I do talk about some controversial topics and some things that mainstream might consider to be conspiracy theories as well. I don't kind of push the boundaries on any particular agenda. But what I like to do in the rabbit hole is have conversations which is mind expanding and stretching the boundaries of, what people thought are possible, so that they can hopefully create a new paradigm for themselves. Well, I never thought that before. Let me try that. Right. So it's not like trying to dictate somebody should be vegan or they should eat all meat or whatever it is. It's like, well, let's educate you on on all ends of the spectrum so you can open up some new ideas. I think so much of humanity's problems is just because people are stuck in a box, right? And their minds are fixated and stuck on, no, this is the way things are. And I think if I'm here for anything on this planet, it's to rip the shit out of that, right? And basically pull apart, no, you're living in the freaking matrix, right? And if I can give people one little insight to expand their mind and give them a greater level of awareness, or to try something new, experiment on something, then I'm super happy for that. We're talking about spirituality, business, nutrition, health, nature, all sorts of things. Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, I've listened to some. I really like the one with Ryan, and also with Gavin Dentes that I've had previously in my podcast. That's always really interesting. And how can people listen to it?
Yeah, so well, just find me on Instagram, Monty, Monty, Hooke, Hooke. Yeah, just look for me there, and then you'll see some posts and the links in the bio there. So that's probably the easiest way. Or go to montyhooke.com.
Nice, and that'll be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Monty, for this podcast, for everything you're doing, because I can really feel you're very aligned with that mission of helping humanity reconnect with our Earth and a more beautiful new Earth in general.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having built that success and really wanting to give back.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
And thank you to the listeners who took some of their precious time to listen. Thank you for taking some of your precious time to listen to this podcast. If you stayed until the end, I assume it was insightful. If you like this podcast, please share with friends. Remember that if you tag us in your Instagram story at the Light Leaders Podcast, we will repost. Tell us what you've learned. You can also leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Now, if you think I can help you grow your soul mission business, you can register for a free 15-minute coaching call with me. Go to www.thelightleaders.org/free call. Thank you again, and let's co-create the conscious new earth together.